Okay, I'm getting closer to the end of my ball of yarn, and what I want to do is end on a set of 4, a pattern of 4, and then I want to do 1 row of NN on both beds. So that's how I personally want to finish this. Okay, so I am going to finish it off by doing a row with N on both beds. And I'm going to leave a long tail so I can manually bind it off the bed. So NN and then 1 row. Okay, 1 row of NN. See, I have tail about 2 or 3 times the length of the work in order to do my bind off. Okay, now I'm going to continue in waste yarn. I could either bring the lock back over to the right with GX on both beds, or I can pick up my waste yarn on the left-hand side. So I have anchored my waste yarn on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to start from there, and I'm just going to do a few rows of N. And after that, you can either bind it off, take it off the bed, or you can go directly into another scarf or shawl wrap. So, since you have the needle set up and you have it all cast on and ready to go. Okay, so just going to do N. I'm going to ignore that. Computer still thinks I'm doing the pattern. So now I'm actually going to put all the needles on one bed and use the tricot fit. So I'm going to knit 1 more row. Now I can show you. Here is the cast on edge. So I'm going to pick up these loops at the bottom and cast those off. So I did that beginning end row so that I wasn't starting with it here to cast off this. I have an extra loop down there to cast off. And at the other side, here's our cast off on the machine with the tricot fit. Dropped a few stitches, so I'm just going to pick these up right away because it looked like I dropped one without realizing it, just a few. And put those on the needles I'm going to use to cast off. Put those on right away. Yeah, pretty clean edge. A little distorted because that's where I have it hanging the weights, but we will block that and it'll be okay. That's what was getting stuck. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so next I am going to put this on the needles, do the cast off, and then soak it in water, squish all the air bubbles out, and then I'm going to block it. So I will show you those steps in a little bit. Okay, so I can show you the work. Here is the shawl I made, this one is some 673 rows. This is the Tricofit cast off edge. It looks like I didn't transfer all the needles. I didn't double check, so I've just closed those up with some little clips so they don't unravel before I do the cast off. And then here is the cast on edge. So I'm going to be picking up these loops. This. Pick up all those loops and do the bind off the other way. So I'm going to have the bind off on the same bind off on both sides. So it's going to be the same amount of stretchiness. Because sometimes if you use the cast on, you bind off differently. You have one side that's, you know, relatively flexible and the other side that's pretty tight. And I'm a little picky about things being symmetrical. So I prefer to just do the same cast off and cast on. And then you see here, no drops. So we watch that really carefully. Okay, so next step is the bind off, cast off, whatever method you choose. There are a whole bunch of different methods. I'll show you the method that I use. And then after that, we are going to block the work. Tie in the ends from the ball changes and then block the work. Okay. So I have picked up the work from the cast on edge side and I have knitted it off. So when you pick up stitches from the starting end, you may notice you have 2 half stitches on either side. You may be able to knit into one and not the other. It's the nature of that. You're always a half stitch off if you wanted to start from the other end. Okay, so here I have the stitches on the top end, or the final end. I've put them on a 3.5 millimeter needle, US size 4, and I am going to bind off with it. So it's going to start with a knit, and then another knit, and then I'm going to stick the needle back in, and I'm going to knit those 2 together. So now I just knit 1, stick the needle back in, knit those 2 together, knit 1, stick the needle back in, knit those 2 together, and so on all the way to the end. This is a bamboo needle. It sticks a little bit, which is actually handy if you're afraid of the needles, afraid of the loops falling off the needle. But also makes it a little difficult to move the work when you have it pretty tight on the needle. Okay, just continue this to the end. Okay, just pull thread through at the end. So you can see the end is pretty stretchy. I don't need it to be stretchier than that because when I block it, I'm going to block it at about, somewhere probably around this tension. and that's plenty of stretch for the cast off edge. Yeah, I don't want it to look like that when I block it. So that's a good flexibility on that end. Remove the waste yarn and weave in the yarns at the ball changes and on each side, the cast on and the cast off. Okay, and then we're going to get ready to block. So I finished off the cast on and cast off edges and wove in all the ends. I soaked the work in some lukewarm water with some wool wash, squeezed out all the air, let it soak for about 15 minutes, then took it out, laid it on a towel and squeezed out the excess water. Then I laid it on the mat and put it on the blocking rails. I wove the rails through between half the tucks, so at the very points here, because this edge will not be straight, it should be scallops. It's this line of knitting here that should be basically be straight. And then I just wove it through some of the cast off edges here, and then you pin the rail back. And so you just put pins to hold the rail back every so often. And then you just wait till it's dried completely, and then you're good to go. This work was long, so I needed to have multiple rails for the whole work. I just switched off the rails, and so, yeah. Yep, and he pinned it so it's nice and open. So hopefully that lace pattern will show nicely after it's off the rails. Okay, so here it is, off the rails, off the blocking mat, all dry. You can see how the edge kind of keeps a little bit of a scallop, and it's pretty straight, and these remain pretty open. You know, you crunch it like this, they close, but they remain pretty open, so you get the lace pattern. So you can really see the delicate pattern here. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know if you have any suggestions for other projects or any questions on any of the projects. Happy knitting!